Thank you so much, Law. Welcome everyone to the LCS post-game lobby after a crazy day, a day of days in the summer split. I'm Shox, here with Dracos, the Fisio, and Fnatic's Broxa. Broxa, first off, congrats. First place is locked in. You're kind of the king of the hill. Everyone was brawling. You also lost, though, but in the end, it didn't matter. Can you walk us through the day and the emotions of the day?
I think the day overall was really mixed for me, because at first we obviously expected Schalke to just beat H2K and make our day kind of easy and we would just be able to chill, but then they lost, then Misfits lost to Rocket.
Yeah.
And then in our game it actually ended up being kind of a mess as well, and it was really close. Like, we got a lead and we threw, and then it started getting a bit scary from there. But we had hope and vitality, and they made it work in the end. But Tobii really doesn't feel like we're first place right now.
I feel like if you lose that game, you don't feel like you deserve the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
My mentality quickly would go from, oh, wow, we deserve this, to we take those. When Vitality wins, we're like, you know what? Can't really be picky. We lost Unicorns of Love today. We still got first place. We'll just, it's been an okay day, you know? Still got it.
Mandatory question we don't often get to talk to. So, excuse the word, but the losers of a game. What happened versus the Unicorns of Love, Broxa?
I think a lot of things went wrong against Unicorns. The first of them was draft. We had a kind of weird draft where we ended up just blind picking Kindred, which is not something we normally do, but all of a sudden there was a lot of jungle bans, and we ended up in a pretty tricky spot, so we picked the Kindred, which was okay, but it could have been better. And then yeah, I don't know, it was just really random, and we didn't really know what to pick into Irelia, because like, just a lot of things didn't go the way we expected them to, right?
Teemo's a great pick into Irelia.
Maybe we should have picked Teemo. I'm sure Caps would love that, to be fair, but I know, I just think like we were pretty well prepared coming into it, but then they threw a lot of curveballs at us, like a lot of things we didn't expect. Because
interesting.
Wait, what do you mean you didn't?
That was the most predictable.
Yeah, I was gonna say they picked Aurelia.
He's undefeated on this. He only wins
picked Kennen, which is apparently the only champion White Knight likes to play these days. What was unpredictable?
I think the Irelia was somewhat predictable, but for example, for me, I really didn't expect this many jungle bans, right?
Right. Okay.
This is not something you normally see. I think there was 3 or 4 jungle bans in first ban phase. And that put me in a pretty tricky spot all of a sudden, where we quickly had to figure out if we want to still pick jungle first free, or if we want to sack me, like, what's the best thing to do, right? And we ended up going for the Kindred, which, as I mentioned, it was okay, but you know, it was not like I was going to carry with it.
What you're saying is the Unicorns of Love prepared you for playoffs, because now you know, hey, this is a thing that can happen. Let's quickly.
Yeah, I think it's actually really good in a way that we lost today, because, like, in a way, regardless of what happened in draft or how we played it, doesn't really matter, because now we're first anyways, and we're going to have a lot of time to prepare coming into playoffs. And generally, when thinking of our team, I think we do the best after actually losing. Like, I don't think we've even had a week this year, or maybe the split only, where we actually went 0-2. Like, usually after we go 0-1, we find out what the problem is, we work on it, and we fix it. And now that happening right before playoffs should actually be beneficial for us more than anything, I think.
Yeah. So a follow-up question now with the Unicorns loss, and not to stay on the just negative stuff with Fnatic, but I feel like over the last couple of games, they've been pretty messy overall, quite a lot of them. I've seen you guys be very vocal about it as well, being like, man, it wasn't the cleanest game, but we managed to win. Do you feel like you guys have been performing worse in the last couple of weeks? Or is it just like, you know, we knew we had it, so we could have a little bit of fun?
I don't think we will ever really think of games that way. Like, we always play to win, and we were actually just as prepared coming into these 2 games as we were when we played G2 or Misfits or wherever it was. And we took it really serious. And yeah, I'm just not really sure what's happening, to be honest. I feel like our early games generally still have been really good.
Right.
I think pretty much every early game has been good. Even today we got ahead, but then we took a really bad fight, which I think has been one of our problems. We end up in a lot of bad fights and take some stupid risks instead of just closing the game out safely and properly, right? It was also a big problem against Splice, where we were pretty far ahead, but then we were just too rushed. We didn't play by the book, and we ended up throwing a few times. So we just need to be more disciplined, I feel.
Yeah, you do have 2 weeks now, right, to work towards your semifinal. So I think we should turn it on the positive, although you don't really feel like it's a victory today. You guys did very much deserve that first place after the way you've played, even if it wasn't so clean. I think we can all agree that in the last couple of weeks, there's no one else right now that can hold a candle to Fnatic, and they should be first. Is that fair?
definitely should be first place, 100%. I think a lot of the other teams are smelling a little bit of blood, maybe, because they're like, "Ooh, we're seeing some of the mistakes that could happen,"
They're
or how
beatable, yeah.
you know how teams are trying to draft against them, which does hype up the thing in playoffs a bit more. But the thing is, there's such a difference between playing the regular season BU1s into then the best of 5 in especially summer playoffs. Like each player will have now on Fnatic's side 2 weeks to have everything ready. They will scout the opponent in the quarterfinal. Like, you get all the advantages. So I think we might see a more disciplined Fnatic in that semifinal, and then they will be super scary.
And just additionally, you talk about the weakness today, being caught off guard by these jungle bans. That strategy, even if teams could learn from it, is something that Fnatic now gets to prepare for. Yeah. So any weakness they showed here, in theory, they have enough footage, and if they've got the knowledge of why they failed, they can just shore up all those weaknesses in the same way Fisher was talking about. And you might feel like if you're, going to go up against them in a semifinals matchup that maybe you have some kind of in, but I think it's really unlikely that you're going to get any kind of edge on Fnatic in terms of preparation when they get to watch your games and when our quarterfinals are going to be really intense competitively.
Yeah, that is true. A final question. Of course, we were following the Reckless coming back in very closely, and we were thinking about the fact that it's the first time we've really seen a 6-man roster where these players are being subbed in and out. Do you feel with these 2 weeks of playing with either of the players, you're now prepared to go into playoffs and it's really a strength and not a liability that someone hasn't played a lot of the season?
I think coming into playoffs, it's going to be beneficial for us to have played with Reckless. I don't think it's part of the reason why we've been playing more poorly the last 2 weeks, but giving him some games is going to be really good going into playoffs, because both for him, because if he hasn't played for a long time and then suddenly gets thrown in a semifinal, he's going to be a little more nervous than usual. And for us as a team, the dynamic and the communication just changes when he's in the team, right? Like, when you take a person out and put another in, it's just going to be different. And Reckless and Bwipo have 2 different personalities and bring a lot of different styles and views in game. So I think getting some games with Reckless now is going to be really good for us. And yeah, like going into playoffs, we should be really flexible in a really good spot, because we have 2 top laners and 2 AD carries, and not every team can brag about having that, right?
That is so exciting, I have to say. I mean, us as a broadcast crew, and I think a lot of viewers as well, are just excited that this is something that is happening, although it came to it maybe a bit unconventionally due to Reckless benching himself. But this is cool. Like, this is a sort of flexibility that we really haven't seen from any team and could be a huge boon in playoffs.
I also loved just the Whipper story overall.
Yeah.
Like, just the way he came in spring and suddenly had to play playoffs because of the injury, and then he wins the split, and talk about being the best top laner instantly. Then he becomes a bot laner, and then he's like, hey, I'm a great bot laner now. Like, that story in itself, even if you're a huge fanatic, a huge Reckless fan, is awesome, because what he did with this team obviously works super well, because despite losing today, because of all the early wins they got, they are still first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit sad for SOAS, because now we don't, like, he's still, like, he also wins when he's on the team, but no one's like, okay, he's been playing forever, he's still doing good, but let's focus on here's my shout out to SOAS. You rock. Okay, there we go. Well, let's check out how everything ended up after what turned out to be the penultimate day of the regular season. That means there's another day tomorrow. I didn't know that word either. So let us run us through the day. We came into the day thinking that the fight for first was, decided that Fnatic would get it because Schalke would beat H2K. H216 then beat Schalke 04. And Schalke was all of a sudden in another fight for the bye and couldn't get first anymore. And Fnatic needed to win versus the Unicorns of Love. Misfits then lost to Roccat, so they fell down to 5th place. Fnatic then lost to the Unicorns of Love, which made D2 eligible for 1st place. And then Vitality gave us Sunday with the round robin between Vitality, G2 Esports, and FC Schalke 04 for the bye. I feel like that's an ideal timeline. What do you guys think?
I mean, from how many games can we play, how hype can we make it, I personally love it. I was kind of holding out for the G2 Fnatic tiebreaker for first. Sorry, Broxa. But now that you've locked it, I think this is the next best thing that could have happened. And honestly, Vitality probably feels really good about this. Schalke, yes, they lost to H2K today, but when you see all the potential scenarios that could have unfolded, this is one of the better ones, because there's a lot of places where they just would have locked 3rd or could have been in a tiebreaker for 4th. So the fact that they can still fight for a bye is very good for them at this point.
I think one of the nightmare scenarios was a 3-way tie we had to play on a Sunday, but not for one of the top seeds. And you'd just be like,
That's great.
Or the Misfits Vitality tiebreaker that could have happened today, where you play for 4 or 5, so you still play each other.
You can get side selection and 1, 3, or 5,
That's
or you can get it 2
also,
or 4.
would not have been the most hyped tiebreaker.
Before we talk about tomorrow, there's one thing that we need to wrap up for today. I just saw him from the corner of my eye. Otherwise, I would have forgotten. He's been standing there for 15 minutes. VODS has a trophy.
His name is Minion now.
Minion has a trophy for our superior analyst, Defishibro.
Kneel, Minion. Give him the gift. For he hath earned it.
Kiss my
Donut.
shoe.
Kiss the shoe. That's stupid. No.
You did well. You still got second place, even though it's the first loser. It's still second place.
So, just to be clear, in the prediction game, this means that the regular season prediction god, superior analyst, is the Fisho, but but it's not over until the best of fives are played, and then you get points both for predicting the winner and the match score correctly. Then you get a fatty bonus.
Does this sound gross when I'm eating this?
I can't hear it, so maybe.
This donut is also a day old, but
great.
Okay.
Makes it better.
Alrighty, crazy stuff. I also just want to call out that I had the Unicorns over Fnatic and Vitality over G2.
I have Rocket over Misfits. Yeah.
No, it's a winner's donut.
I won in that prediction. I'm beating Twitter now, thank you.
Me too.
All right, you get it. It's yours. It's yours.
You want to bite two, Broxy? You want to split this?
Oh my god.
You're going to have it, it's okay.
Dracos, those Euphoria bets are making you crazy.
It's a community donut. It's meant to be shared.
It's like something
That
from
didn't work
church.
at all.
Alrighty, right. Let's move on. Enough shenanigans. We have a very serious round robin tomorrow for the bye. Probably the most important tiebreakers we've played, because sometimes we play them for 3 or 4 or whatever. This is for a bye. You can skip quarterfinals and go straight to semifinals, and it will go down in a round robin, and Dracos is going to set it all up for us.
Yeah, so basically, round robin, every team is going to play every other team, so 2 games apiece. Now, if someone has won, if there's a 2-0 team, they will get the highest seed in second place. The 1-1 team will get third. The 0-2 team will get fourth. Pretty straightforward. The issue becomes when we get to that 1-1 stage, that's when we start adding more games. So you go from 3 games to 5 games. The teams are going to be seeded into a single elimination bracket. Now, the person who's going to get the bye in this bracket is determined by win time. The team with the fastest win is going to get the free seed. They're only going to have to play 1 game to secure their spot. The other 2 teams battle it out. So the loser in the first round is 4th, the loser in the second round is 3rd, and the winner of the whole thing would then get 2nd. So nobody on those teams wants a 1-1. I want a 1-1 because I love more games. We want more 1-1s, but you can see the schedule behind us now. Yes. I wasn't sure how it's seated, and now I don't have to find out.
There we go. So we start at 2:30 with Ready Check. So at 3 p.m. we will have Vitality Schalke, then G2 Vitality, and then G2 Schalke No Fear. Now, let's talk about momentum. First up, I want to talk about Schalke, because we were finally all bought into the hype train, right? They were 10-1, for Christ's sake, in the last 11 games. And then Schalke lost the very first of their important games in the next couple of weeks. The game which would keep them alive in the battle for the bye, or would give them a better chance for the bye. And they lose it. Does that tell us anything, Broxa? Do you think we should be worried?
I think it's really hard to say, because it just really depends on how Schalke reacts to losing as a team. Like, as I mentioned earlier, I think we're a team that is pretty good at reacting to losses, but you never know how Schalke is going to react, right? Like, maybe they're going to be similar to us, where they go home now they work hard, they work hard and find out what the problem is and actually fix it. Or they go in the other direction, where they're just tilted into oblivion and...
Sorry, Broxa.
And the game tomorrow is going to be... or the games tomorrow is going to be rough for them.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to say.
Personally, for me, I agree 100%. We have to find out what kind of team they are. But if they are even a little bit the kind of team that tilts after a loss like this is where you tilt.
This is scaring me.
Because H2K has been labeled a free win since like week 4 for the vast majority of teams in our league. And if you are the kind of player that is very prideful, that's going to be a blow to that confidence.
Also, Hungarian fan bus was here and was cheering. Not saying that, but those things.
That's more fuel to the fire, though. You got to imagine.
Fire when this happens.
I'm not panicking yet. As a potential Schalke fan. Panicked during the game when everything was on fire. But I think had a couple of hours already. They get to watch the other games and they see, oh, okay, we're not the only ones. Misfits lose to Rocket. Fnatic lose to Unicorns. Like, you were not the only team who messed up. And I think tomorrow they should be fine. Like, they should still have a ton of confidence based on everything that's happened. I'm sure, like every pro team, they will blame the draft or something, and then they will move on. Because that tends to work. And they should be fine for tomorrow.
And tomorrow also, like, if anything, however they come out of this, they will have gotten over some of the nerves then going into playoffs, at least, as a positive. But if you go out of this and you're, like, 5th...
Yeah,
I mean,
that's where it sucks.
For sure, it's tough. But I mean, the logic that people always bring up is that if you want to be the best in ULCS, you should be able to beat every team.
But you can also avoid some good ones on the way.
I mean, if they crumble here in terms of a mental game, they have a bit of time to recover to figure out this is a very high-pressure scenario. It's kind of like the training wheels for playoffs, so maybe you can argue it's beneficial regardless of what happens. But personally, I just don't want to see Schalke crash and burn.
No.
As long as they're still a contender, whatever happens to them in playoffs, I just don't want to see this project that has suddenly become so successful in the second half of the split just die the second there's pressure on them.
I think actually what scares me for that specific game is not Schalke and their mentality. It's more the fact that Vitality this week, both games, look really damn good.
True.
Like the Olaf from Kickers yesterday, the Kindred from Kickers today, like he used both these champs to just run over the enemy team. And that's the kind of team who we know play with emotion, who we know when they're doing well are like, whoop, up here saying, we are the best, we can destroy everyone, just keep doing what we're doing now. And that's the thing. Can people find a way to shut down Kickers champ pool? Because before it was Trundle, and it got removed. Now it's Olaf and Kindred as well. Is there more?
I'd love to know, what have you thought of the entrance of Kickers in Vitality now he's playing right now?
Well, I was about to say something similar to the official, that I actually think Vitality is going to look really, really scary tomorrow, because ever since Kickers joined, they've been so good. Like it's been one of the teams that I personally have been a little scared of as well, because with how they're playing right now, you just don't know what's coming, right? Like you have an idea of what Kickers is going to do, but their early game is really crazy. And as a jungler going up against Kickers, he's just fearless. Like, you know, he's going to be in your face and some aggressive jungler, and you just need to hope that you're going to be in a spot where you can defend yourself, right? And sure, he has played some Trundle, some Olaf, some Kindred. Like, I think even if you start target banning him, there's going to be more champions ready to pull off. It's not like that's the most... I mean, Olaf is starting to be common, but there's a lot of carry junglers out there, right? So if he really wants to carry, there's other options.
So would you be happy if they get the bye so that you don't have to meet them until finals?
I actually can't figure out, even... I think it was last week I was in post-game lobby as well, and I was asked the same thing. And throughout the week, we've been talking so much about it as a team, but I just can't figure out where I want to play in the semi-finals, because everyone looks strong in different ways. And I think Vitality is on a big high right now. Schalke has been on the high as well. Obviously, they lost today, but they're still a really good team. And then there's teams like G2, Misfits, Blaize, who have looked, I mean, they've looked okay, right? But looking at the last few weeks, I would be more scared of Vitality and Schalke.
Agreed. I think let's talk about G2. It's been touch and go since Rift Rivals, and it definitely wasn't good today. Vitality completely ran over them, so what are our expectations for tomorrow and beyond?
I don't have a ton of expectations for G2 right now. I want to see them improve. I felt like their draft today was really mediocre. I really hated Ezreal Braum in the bottom lane, specifically in this matchup in general. I understand them wanting to play safe, but it feels like they kind of enabled Hjarnan when they picked up the VODS last week. There's not as many picks available to enable him, but I did want to see that more. And I'm just worried about where they're going to find consistency, because, I mean, we heard it from the cast too. It's like, which form of Jankos is going to show up today? Which form of each of these Polish youngers is going to show up? And I wonder how they're going to take a loss like this coming into tomorrow.
I think based on the three teams, they match up fine against Schalke, because Schalke is not the kind of team who will completely punish you early game, at least normally. But the last time they did play each other, there was the game where Jankos went 0-5 on Gragas, and they had the Z pick. So I feel like still that matchup is okay for G2. It's the Vitality one again, where that rematch is going to be probably an issue based on what we saw today. It's so hard, because we can say now G2 will lose all the games, and then tomorrow Jankos has a great early game in the first one, and they look clean, and we're like, G2 is back.
The only thing we can say is it's all against Vitality, it seems, tomorrow. They are on form.
And I think the thing that I want to highlight here is what's really blown me away with Kickers is that he's incredibly consistent. And yes, there are games where you take his champion pool away and he looks weak, but the fact that that champion pool is growing just makes him look better and better. And whereas Gilius as a jungler on this team it was hard to tell when he was going to pop off and be really relevant and when he wasn't. It was hard to find
for the
clear
lanes,
factor.
right?
Sure. Kickers always feels like he's going off as long as he has a champion he's comfortable on. Today was the Kindred. You talk about the Olaf, the Trundle as well. If that champion pool continues to grow, I imagine we're going to have a lot of drafts where people just target ban out junglers and hope for the best. But if there's that fourth champion, that fifth Kickers champion, I just don't see Vitality losing an early game when he's playing this well.
In the context of junglers, it's also very, very exciting to me. Broxa, I think you'll agree with me. You're also not the flashy early game jungler, even though you enable Caps and the rest of the lanes very well. Kickers is really an all-out explosive jungler. Amazing is also not that kind of guy. And Jankos is the 50-50 guy. So I think Kickers is like the pure song explosive jungler 100%. 100% of the time, all the time. And that is really impressive to me. And I really wonder what's going to happen if he keeps on this form, because they seem unstoppable if they build up these leads. So the follow-up question to that is mid-game vitality. What's the consensus on that now? Because they've gotten such big leads that they really just ran it down mid, right, in the last couple of games. But are we feeling more secure that they will have more in their playbook if it comes to close mid-game games?
The way for them to secure Baron is always to have a big fight first.
Yeah.
It's not we're gonna like slowly secure all the vision and we're just gonna like force you out of the pit and there's no chance for you to get in. Because even the one today actually ended up being pretty close. But I think as long as they draft decent amount of engage, so they can play that playstyle of after get the early advantage, they group as 5 and try and force this team fight into the Baron. I think this team will be able to, in a best of 5, secure most of them, but there will be games where they mess up late game. 100%.
And I think from this game, the one thing that I noticed was when they got that lead, yes, Baron was still very rough, but one of the big moments where they were going to continue to snowball, when he denied the Rift Herald, that was a big factor, because you did see Vitality choking out control on the top side jungle completely, playing a slower game, trying to play a more controlled game. There were still things missing, absolutely. They weren't setting up enough vision, in my opinion, but you're starting to see small improvement there of how they can play a little bit slower. In the end, it does come down to that Baron fight. It comes down to a little bit of that insanity, but I feel like if the Rift Herald had been summoned, we would have seen a few more towers go down, and then we actually would have gotten to see a true test of how cleanly can Vitality set up Baron in a game where they are winning.
Rox, what do you think?
Yeah, from my point of view, Vitality has gotten better at playing mid-late game. I think they're getting they're playing it at an okay level now, but comparing them to Schalke and G2, I think they really need to get ahead early game. I think Vitality just send us too much around early game, and Schalke and G2 are pretty much the opposite in my eyes, where they are really happy going even and play macro. Like, that's pretty much how their playstyle works. They play tanky junglers, more supportive jungle style for the most part. Jankos has played some Talia, but generally they're pretty happy playing Gragas, Sejuani, whatever it may be. Whereas Vitality wants to be in your face. They want to play Olaf, Kindred, and generally with these type of picks, the game is going to be harder if you fall behind early. So for Vitality, if they actually do get ahead early, I think they can make the game really, really hard to play for Schalke and G2 and Snowball. But if they fall behind, I think Schalke and G2 will just smash them.
Are Fnatic the most complete team of all the teams in playoffs? Do you guys know how to control every part of the game correctly if needed?
I think if you asked me before today, I would probably say yes. But right now I'm a little biased because we just lost the Unicorns. So I still have to say that I think we're the best team. I think we have the most flexibility, and in-game, regardless of roster, I think we're just the best all around. But at the same time, we also have shown some weaknesses, and we're not unbeatable, so we also have some things to work on.
I'm curious as to how you guys are going to use Reckless, because right now it's Ezreal duty, it's very much that freeing up Hylissang to roam, and it's very similar to how you played with Blippo. Without the mage in the bottom lane, it's no longer a kill lane, it's still just a lot of leaving your bot laner alone so Hylissang can roam. I want to see if we see more games where Reckless is on an 80 carry, and they actually put him in this position to be a hyper carry, because that would, to me, be a very big stylistic shift in terms of how you guys are playing, because like last year was the Reckless show. This year is much more spread out, and I wonder if we hit a point where it calls for it, where you're in a game where you need a hyper carry, that you guys can do that. Because the Splice game, while you guys did pull off the win, we saw that when you get late game with these, these Swain and the Wukong kind of setup, that it was very difficult for you guys to team fight against a team who was comfortable in the late game.
Even when it comes to that, I think we will always be fine, because in the past 3 splits, actually, we always played the same style with Reckless on the carry, playing around Reckless. I was just, for the most part, ignoring Soas, just letting him kill him.
Leave him on the island.
And I saw a mic check actually recently with it was Maxlaw bullying Elfari with, always pathing from top to bot. And that's actually how we played the past 3 splits. It's only this split where it has been different. And I think that's kind of funny. But yeah, like going back to the subject, I think that if we have to play carry style, bot lane, Reckless on a Tristana, probably not Tristana, she's not the greatest right now, but you get the point, right? Then we will be able to play it, because we've played it so much in the past.
Yeah, and oftentimes also when we thought, even I think in like times before, when we thought, oh, they're always going to go always for caps, sometimes you guys would just pull out a protect the 80 carry comp out of nowhere, and we would be like, what are they doing? And sometimes you would win. So
I mean, that was finals, right? Where we were like, oh, they're just going to do the same strategy 3 times in a row because they know G2 can't win team fights. And it worked.
It definitely worked.
So we talked about all the positives. We talked about tomorrow. I do want to touch on one big elephant in the room called Misfits Gaming. Whew. Yeah, what a fall from grace, I would say, after
dying
the
elephant.
first half of the split.
Free-falling.
Same score as H2K in the second half of the split, thanks to Twitter reminding us of that. Broxa, what do you think is going on with Misfits?
I think it's kind of hard to say, right? But I think they started getting a bit too high hopes when they were 9-0. I mean, you can't really blame them for that, right? But they were 9-0. It seemed like they were really confident and believed that they were by far the best team in Europe, at least from the outside. And then we beat them, and after that, it just started going completely downhill for them. Like, after that one loss, they just seemed to react pretty poorly to it and didn't really know how to come back, because after we beat them, there was more losses coming. They just kept losing, and it kind of snowballed. And it just seems like they don't really know how to get back on track. And like, I really don't know what's going on in the team, but it seems like they're not really playing as a team anymore.
It looks like a kind of a breakdown of like characters and confidence and everything.
So one of the problems was they won with one play style in the start.
Yeah.
Which was the try to get a winning bottom side, Maxwell plays around bottom side, Alfari on a tank top. They stepped away from it after losing to Fnatic, where the focus was around mid lane. And obviously, you know, you guys shut down Senkooks pretty hard. The Wukong mid was a big surprise, all that kind of stuff. And they changed it to carry top laners a bit more. Hansama disappeared. Now what they did this week with subbing Mickey back in is they went back to the old style. The problem is, every team has seen that style for a couple of weeks. So what happened this week? Both games, enemy teams hard-targeted bot lane. They tower dove from level 3, 4, and 5. Vitality did it yesterday with Kikis. Remember that? Down there, smacking Hansama in the face. Today, we had the Tahm Kench for Rockcat.
Yeah.
Making sure whenever you tower dive the bot lane, Tahm Kench saves you. And we suddenly have TF coming down from blank, you know, Twisted Fate suddenly shows up. Like, teams have figured out if you draft this style as Misfits, which is actually the style that worked, you have to gank bot.
And your other styles are not as effective by a long shot.
Because when Misfits fall behind, and especially when they fall behind this much around the bottom side, they just fall apart. Because that's what they're drafting for at the moment. And I think the one playstyle was great, and now teams know how to play against it. But I almost don't want to flame them for going back to that style, because I flame them for leaving the style.
So the thing that we heard on the podcast when we had Jesus and Hansama on was that they didn't feel like they were amazing, that they were a perfect team when they were 9-0ing. They felt like everyone else was still struggling to learn. And so I feel like it was almost bad for Misfits not to lose 1 or 2 games, because they didn't have to, as much at least, critically evaluate what they were doing. And now it feels like they're scrambling to figure out what works, right? Because you got Jesus going in, Jesus going out, you got Alfari on top lane carries, them trying to figure out how to best utilize Senkooks. And now I think Misfits don't know how to play at 100% because they weren't forced to play at 100% early, and now they're being challenged to grow. It's too late. Like, they're scrambling to find options.
In the past, we've trusted in the process and trusted in the moves, right? Do we have the same level of trust before playoffs now?
The difference is different players, which obviously was the process last year was with Power Vivo mid lane and Ignore bot lane. So it was a different combination. That ended up working by trusting in that, in the one-year plan. Now, what we have been seeing over these last few weeks is it almost feels they're limited if they don't have the winning bot lane style. And is that then based on players? Like, in Spring Split, they didn't make playoffs. They tried different styles. None of them really hit home until the one we see this split with their winning bot side. So it might be the change of players, making them less flexible in how many things can they actually do. Because Power Vivo was a hard carry in mid lane.
Yeah. He never got. I feel like he never got enough credit for that, for what he did on Misfits. I don't know if that's.
Other mid laners refused to give Power Vivo credit.
Yeah.
But as a team player, he did a lot.
Also, I think it's really easy for us to see that now that the cracks are showing and the team is really struggling, especially this year. But I think at the time, we're like, okay, here's one carry. Who's the second carry going to be? That was always the stories we were trying to tell. People would have good games. We wanted to find that consistently. And it's not until this year that we realized how hard Power Vivo was carrying, how big of a force this guy was for the team. And while they have had, you know, a decent amount of success this split especially, it's still not the same in terms of, I feel like, having that one standout player.
Speaking about Power of Evil, over in the LCS, the final weekend of their regular season is also going to start pretty soon. I believe actually a half-hour countdown starts, and then after that, the games. Echo Fox versus Team Liquid, and it's also today that it's Optic versus TSM, right? So that is so apt. Power of Evil, if you're watching, we believe in you. I mean, I'm not against TSM or anything. I just want that to be a hype game.
This is like the which former EU players do you root
Sven
for?
and Mythy against Power of Evil. and of course Bjergsen, who says that Power of Evil is not his kryptonite. It's something the Riot broadcast has definitely tried to push a lot of times.
We've been pushing that since IEM, dude.
Yeah, we definitely also are to blame for that.
There's smoke, there's fire. We only push things that could be some things like the fight for first.
It's happened a lot of times, and if he knocks Bjergsen out of playoffs today, we can all confirm he is the kryptonite.
Yeah, what do you think, Broxa? Is he going to do it? Is Optic going to beat TSM?
Well, to be fair, I'm a little biased because TSM has 2 Danish players.
Yes.
So
I'm with you there.
I would be surprised if TSM actually loses. I think they have the Danish power coming in. But
that's my kind of analysis. I agree with that.
Is NA going to counter our craziness with, like, you know, TSM is fighting for their lives over there? Like, that would be the ultimate craziness. We'll see.
It's true.
If you look at what happened in Europe, then I would say that Optic is probably going to win. Like, realistically speaking, TSM haven't looked that great, the split, but it would be a big surprise if they actually don't reach players. And today in Europe, everyone that you expected to win almost ended up losing. So
that's TSM's strength. They've been so bad that they're not expected to win. And today's the day where the unexpected happens. Go TSM.
Righty. Housekeeping-wise, after the NALCS and possible ties, I believe you will then see the EOLCS rebroadcast. And then tomorrow, we'll be back for the tiebreakers. Now, this has been crazy. Let me just say, tomorrow we get to see the team of rookies in spring that fell down a bit and could now come back and snatch away the bye. We see Schalke maybe finally living up to their potential, or we see G2 getting closer and closer to the rematch for that cup.
I mean, yeah, if you're G2 esports, you were the team #1 who used to win all the time.
Is this the first time they haven't gotten a bye if they lose out here?
They've gotten the bye,
they had the Splice one.
Oh,
yeah,
the
quarterfinal.
Yes,
but,
yes.
like, you were supposed to be back in that final, telling Fnatic that 3-0 never happened. That's not how it's supposed to be when G2 esports is in the final, because they're supposed to win them, and now they might not even get that top 2 spot. Like, that is actually crazy. And again, a lot of pressure on especially Perks, who is the person they built this new team around, who needs to try and continue the legacy.
And just to plant the seed, in this configuration, in terms of worlds, it's looking quite likely that Fnatic and G2 might get there on victory and points, and then it's between the other teams to fight it out in the gauntlet, or another team has to rise up and win. I'm just saying, things could get extremely
I'm just saying right now, if I could pick 3 teams, G2 would not be on that list right now. I would pick Fnatic, Schalke.
But how are you going to keep them out of points?
I mean, I can't. I'm just saying, if I could, as an EU fan, if I could pick 3 teams right now, and now I would be happy to see G2
Maybe this is
prove
too
me
early
wrong
to
in
go
the
in that.
future.
I would love to send Vitality into best of ones at Worlds.
Yeah.
And like, have fun, everyone. Here we go. Now we're gonna fight, and like
never got
that
to
would
send
actually
the
be great.
unicorn, so now we're sending Vitality.
There we go.
They'll be crazy. I cannot wait for tomorrow. This is going to be insane. Round robin. The battle for the bye will be on tomorrow, but that'll be it from us here tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. Ready check, and then the craziness. See you for all that mayhem then.
Throwing out the ice ball at Venti, going in for the collapse, finally gets the kill, and that's going to be Splice with a victory. Nukeduck, he's certainly going to fall, and the rest of Schalke trying desperately to fight this out as H2K sensing the win in their eyes, looking for that 2 and 16 finish. Upset going low, and it's going to be the execution of the Nexus, and H2K are hard to kill today. Let's see how this one ends. Norscarum is taking up the damage on Sama, going down to EQ, and it looks like it is a Misfits bloodbath, and Norscarum saves the life of Memento. That Baron is very low. Let's see if they can get inside of the pit. That Ashero's coming down in. Goes the Memento steals the Baron, and on the last day of the split, their last game of 2018, Rocket blast off to victory.
It feels like he's been caught every single time. Hourglass will save Caps' life for now as Exile is jumping forward to help a White Knight. Look at Exile. He's tearing Fnatic apart. He's not done yet. Savic's the back end. The Nexus is the focus. It's going low. Unicorns need a few more hits, and they've taken down Fnatic. Goes down to the Cataclysm. He's looking for Kikis. Lamb's Respite is available, and so far it's a 3 for 2. But it's only Wadid that shows up. There's not enough damage. There's not enough utility. G2 Esports will concede 2 more kills. Vitality have taken down G2 Esports, and the battle for the bye starts on Sunday.